I moved to Utah because I thought empty space would fix me. That sounds dramatic now, but at the time it felt completely reasonable. I had just ended a relationship that took up most of my 20s. We had lived together for 6 years, and when it finally fell apart, I realized I didn't know how to be alone in a city full of people who knew my name. So I left Colorado and took a job in southern Utah, working for a small outdoor rental company in Moab. It was supposed to be temporary. I rented a tiny place behind an old mechanic shop, worked 6 days a week checking tourists into Jeeps and side-by-sides, and spent my evenings driving out toward the desert until my phone lost signal. I liked that part most. No messages, no obligations. Just red rock, dust, and the kind of silence that makes you feel like the last person on earth. That was when I met Lena. She came into the shop on a Wednesday afternoon, asking about renting a high-clearance SUV for the weekend. She wasn't dressed like most tourists. No brand new hiking boots, no wide-brimmed hat, no expensive camera hanging around her neck. She wore old jeans, a faded gray hoodie, and sunglasses even though we were indoors. She told me she lived outside of town, near a private road south of Spanish Valley. When I asked where exactly, she just smiled and said, "Past where the map stopped being useful." I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. We started talking after that, first at the shop, then over coffee, then on long drives through places she knew better than any guidebook. She showed me petroglyph panels tourists never found, dry washes that looked like roads until they swallowed your tires, and an overlook above Cane Creek where the cliffs turned purple at sunset. She was calm in a way I envied, but there was one strange thing about her. She never stayed out after dark. No matter where we were, no matter how good the conversation was, she always checked the sky like she was waiting for something. As soon as the sun started dropping behind the rim, she got quiet. Then she would say she had to go. At first I thought she was just careful. A lot of people out there respected the desert. It could kill you without ever looking hostile. But after a few weeks, I noticed it wasn't the desert she was afraid of. It was her house. She finally invited me there on a Friday night in late October. The road to her place started as pavement, turned into gravel, then became two pale tire tracks cutting through blackbrush and sand. The house sat alone below a sandstone rim, small and square, with a metal roof and one cottonwood tree leaning over the driveway, like it had been trying to leave for years. There were no other homes in sight. I remember joking that it looked peaceful. Lena didn't laugh. Inside, the house was warm and clean. Not cozy exactly, but carefully arranged. Everything had its place. Books stacked by height, shoes lined perfectly beside the door, curtains drawn over every window, even though there was nothing outside but desert. We made dinner, we opened a bottle of cheap wine. For a while, everything felt normal. Then, a little after 10, I heard 3 knocks. Not on the front door. Under the floor. I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. Lena closed her eyes. The knocks came again. 3 slow taps from somewhere beneath the kitchen. I asked if she had pipes under the house. She said, "There's no basement." I waited for her to explain. She didn't. Instead, she stood up, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled out a heavy flashlight and a roll of duct tape. That was the first time I felt genuinely uneasy. I asked her what was going on. She told me not to talk loudly. Then she went to the back door and pressed the duct tape over the crack at the bottom. I thought maybe this was some pest issue. Rats, raccoons, something nesting under the crawl space. But when I said that, she looked at me like I had just suggested the moon was made of paper. "There is no crawl space," she said. Another knock came, this time from below the living room. 3 taps. Lena whispered, "It does that when someone new is here." I should have left. That is the part people always question when I tell this story. Why didn't I leave? Why didn't I grab my keys and drive back to town? The honest answer is that I didn't believe her. I thought she was anxious, traumatized, maybe dealing with some kind of sleep issue or paranoia. I liked her, and I didn't want to make her feel ashamed. So I stayed. I told her there had to be an explanation. She gave a small, tired smile. That's what everyone says the first night. I asked what she meant by everyone. She didn't answer. For the next hour, nothing happened. We sat on the couch with the TV on low volume, both pretending to watch some old movie neither of us cared about. I kept glancing at the floor. Lena kept glancing at the hallway. Around midnight, I heard something scrape beneath us. Not a knock this time. A drag. Slow and heavy, like furniture being pulled across concrete. Except there was no room under the house. I stood up immediately. Lena grabbed my wrist so hard her nails dug into my skin. "Don't follow it," she whispered. That sentence did something to me. It made the situation feel less like a strange noise and more like a rule I had walked into without knowing the game. The scraping moved from the living room toward the hallway. Then it stopped beneath a rug near the bathroom. I pulled my wrist free and lifted the rug. There was a square outline in the floor. A trapdoor. It had been painted the same color as the boards, so perfectly that I never would have noticed it if I hadn't been looking straight at it. Lena started crying when I saw it. I asked her why she told me there was no basement. She said, "Because there isn't supposed to be." I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. The trapdoor had no handle, just a small finger hole near one edge. I crouched down, slipped my finger inside, and pulled. It didn't move. Lena whispered my name, begging me to stop. Then something knocked from the other side. 3 taps, directly under my hand. I jumped back so fast I hit the wall. Lena turned off the TV. The whole house went quiet. Then a voice from beneath the floor said, very clearly, "Lena." It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It sounded like someone standing just under the boards, speaking with their mouth close to the wood. Lena covered her ears and folded in on herself. The voice said her name again. Then it said mine. I had never told anyone at that house my last name. I hadn't written it down. I hadn't said it over dinner. But the thing under the floor did. I grabbed Lena's keys from the counter and told her we were leaving. She didn't argue. That scared me more than if she had. We ran to my truck. The desert outside was black and cold, the cliffs above the house barely visible against the stars. I started the engine, backed out too fast, and nearly clipped the cottonwood tree. That was when the headlights swept across the front of the house. Someone was standing in the window. Not inside the living room, inside the wall. I don't know how else to describe it. A face was pressed behind the glass, but it was too far back, like the window was deeper than the room itself. Pale, motionless, watching us leave. Lena screamed for me to drive. So I did. We didn't stop until we reached Moab. She stayed at my place that night and said almost nothing. In the morning, she told me the story. Her parents bought the house when she was 8. Back then, the trapdoor was already sealed. The realtor said it was an old utility access that had been closed off decades earlier. Her father tried opening it once, but after that he refused to talk about it. A few years later, Lena's mother started hearing knocks, then voices. Then she began leaving plates of food in the hallway at night. When Lena was 14, her mother disappeared. No broken windows, no tire tracks, no note. Just gone. Police searched the desert for weeks. Nothing. Her father moved them to Salt Lake City soon after, but years later, when he died, Lena inherited the house. She planned to sell it. Instead, she moved back in. I asked why. She looked embarrassed when she answered. Because it sounds like her now. I didn't know what to say. A normal person would have told her to never go back. A smarter person would have called the police. I did neither, because by then, some stupid part of me needed proof. 2 nights later, we returned with cameras, crowbars, flashlights, and the kind of confidence only frightened people can fake. The house looked exactly the same. Lena waited outside while I went in. The trapdoor was visible now. I don't know how I missed it the first night. Once you saw the outline, it seemed obvious. Too obvious. I set up my phone to record, wedged the crowbar into the seam, and pulled. The trapdoor opened easily, no resistance at all. A cold smell rose from below. Not rot, not mold. Rain? That was impossible. It hadn't rained in weeks. Under the floor was a narrow staircase cut into stone. I called for Lena. She came to the doorway but refused to step inside. I should have respected that. Instead, I went down alone. The staircase descended farther than made sense for such a small house. The walls were sandstone, damp and smooth, as if water had been running over them for years. My flashlight beam shook in my hand. At the bottom was a room, not a basement. A room carved directly into the earth. There were candles everywhere, all burned down to little black stubs. Old blankets. Children's drawings taped to the wall. Rusted cans. A wooden chair. And photographs. Hundreds of them. Pinned across the stone in careful rows. Photos of Lena as a child. Photos of her parents. Photos of the house from outside. Photos taken through windows. Then I found photos of me. At work, at the grocery store, walking to my truck, standing at the overlook with Lena. Some were taken weeks before I met her. That was when I understood something was terribly wrong. This wasn't a haunting. Someone had been down there. Someone had always been down there. I backed toward the stairs, trying not to make noise. Then my flashlight landed on a mattress in the corner. A woman was sitting on it. She was extremely thin, with long gray hair and skin so pale it looked blue in the light. Her eyes were open, but they didn't react to me. For one insane second, I thought she was dead. Then she smiled. "Is Lena upstairs?" she whispered. I couldn't move. The woman raised one finger to her lips. "Don't tell her I'm here." I ran. I don't remember climbing the stairs. I only remember bursting into the hallway and grabbing Lena by the shoulders. I told her there was someone down there, a woman. Her face changed, not fear, recognition. She pushed past me and went straight to the trapdoor. I yelled for her to stop, but she was already descending. I followed. When we reached the room, the woman was standing now. Lena dropped to her knees. "Mom?" The woman smiled again, but not at Lena. At me. Then she said in my voice, "You should have left the first night." The candles around the room lit by themselves, every single one. For the first time, I saw the far wall clearly. There was no wall, there was a tunnel. And inside that tunnel were dozens of faces, all pressed close together, all watching from the dark. Some looked old, some young, some looked like they had been waiting for years. Lena's mother opened her mouth. 3 knocks came from inside her throat. Lena screamed. The next few minutes are broken in my memory. I remember pulling Lena up the stairs. I remember the trapdoor slamming against my ankle. I remember voices under the floor, above the ceiling, inside the walls, saying both our names over and over. We made it outside. The house behind us was completely dark. No candlelight in the windows, no sound. We called the police from the main road. They found the room under the house. They found the photographs. They found old bedding, food wrappers, clothing, and evidence that multiple people had lived down there over many years. But they did not find Lena's mother. They did not find the tunnel. According to the official report, the underground room ended at solid sandstone. Lena never accepted that. Neither did I. A month later, the county condemned the house. A few weeks after that, it burned down. Nobody knows how the fire started. Lena moved to Oregon. We tried to keep talking, but some things don't make relationships stronger. Some things infect every conversation until there is nothing left to say. I stayed in Moab another year. Then one night I came home from work and found an envelope taped to my apartment door. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a photograph. It showed me sleeping in my bed, taken from directly above me. On the back, written in Lena's handwriting, were 6 words. It learned how to leave.